He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, but people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fith in. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fith chapter. That's right, and welcome to the Fith chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fith, and we're here ready for episode number 125. And a big, that is a lot. We got a big development from Tokyo earlier today. What do you make of this Simone Biles situation where she quit the team competition of the women's gymnastics, citing mental health issues, but says she's going to be ready to go back to action in 2 days for the individual competition?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty revealing. She said that, usually she's able to take those demons and do whatever she has to do to be able to push them in the back, but she wasn't able to do it there. She called them demons. So, yeah, mental health, over the last year during the pandemic, Paul George, when the Clippers got bounced, he was like, the depression just wasn't, he wasn't at the top of his game. We saw Osaka, she's out too. She didn't talk about having any mental ill effects or something, but that's of course what she talked about with having some of those post-game news conferences, so matches, news conferences. So yeah, it's something that we haven't talked about a whole lot in sports, but now over the past year we're talking about it a lot.
Yeah, it's a pretty weird situation, because one thing that I think a lot of people thought was not only, I feel bad for her, this is something strange must have happened, but at the same time, you think this is an opportunity for her to compete for a championship as a member of a team. And you would have never seen Giannis pull out a game 6 or during any of the NBA Finals games, or Devin Booker pull out of any of the NBA Finals games, saying he stepped out onto the court and he just couldn't do it that night.
Yeah, we just saw Paul George do it, though, and that was in the playoffs, so it's happened. Yeah, and it's. I think the thing that takes you a little bit is she's the greatest of all time, and you think that everything you have to go through, all of the mental preparation, all of the pressure, and all of that. That once you're, I could see somebody that's never been in front of a crowd and just be like, "Wow, man, this was just way too much," or whatever. But she's been through it.
She's been the GOAT for a while.
It is. It would be, like Phelps, doing that, or like Michael Jordan or something like that. That's the kind of stature she's in. Tom Brady, decided that, 3 games in, he just was, having too much. That would be something like that. So
yeah, definitely hope that she gets her mental health in better shape. But very odd development to come out of Tokyo to start the day. As far as our show is concerned, episode 125, we're not hoping for an odd show. We're hoping for 5 more fantastic chapters. And we want to thank everybody out there who's watching via YouTube, via Facebook Live, and via Twitch, and also to those who are listening to the podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify. That, of course, is available on the day of each show at approximately 11 o'clock. What do we got right there? Oh, welcome to the steamy Tuesday night. That's right. There's our little intern, little Brian Jelinek, who you'll be seeing in the 4th chapter. But if you're wondering what we're going to be talking about for all 5 chapters of tonight's show, let's take a look at tonight's book, where, as you can see in the 2nd chapter, we got to get to that SEC expansion. Texas is adding Oklahoma, The SEC is adding Oklahoma and Texas. What should the Big Ten do? What should the Big 12 do? What should all these conferences do now that there's more big conference expansion on the horizon? In the third chapter, Aaron Rodgers reported to training camp earlier today, and the two sides are nearing a deal so that this could be his last dance. We'll give you the details on that and tell you whether or not we think that's a good move or a bad move, as Dennis shows that he's predicting a Tigers victory tonight to go over the Twins. In the fourth chapter, the Lions and Megatron, they still have not mended their fences, and Megatron is at it again, popping off at the mouth. Are they ever going to mend their fences and fix their beef? And after the major wager in the fifth chapter, Team USA has the worst record of all men's basketball teams in the Olympics. Can they come back to win the gold? Dennis and I will give you our 2 cents on that. Does Simo have a thought on that as well?
Here they come.
Here come the Americans. All right, Dennis, let's start off with, as usual, the first chapter, and that takes us to the Pistons, who have the number 1 pick in the draft on Thursday, and the draft begins at 8 p.m. We're going to be on live during the draft because, of course, we start at 7:30, so it'll be very exciting. We were on live during the NBA draft lottery, or at least I was because you were on vacation, but we're both going to be on, along with little Brian, for the NBA draft. And there's a lot of fans out there, Pistons fans, who want Troy Weaver to keep things simple and just draft Cade Cunningham. Don't answer any phone calls. Don't consider anybody else. But there are also fans who want perhaps something else to happen. And for those that want them to just take Cade, it could be a long week, especially if you read what Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN put out. There was a tweet that I think probably sent some shockwaves through the Pistons fan base. Let me put that tweet up on the screen so you guys can see it. There, you see it right there. And yesterday he tweeted, Detroit's internal meetings are still revolving around 3 players for the number 1 pick on Thursday night: Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, and Evan Mobley, sources tell ESPN. Detroit isn't fully there yet on committing to Cunningham with the first overall choice. So that, I think, is pretty big news. Additionally, on my radio show on Sunday night, I had the honor of interviewing NBA insider Chad Ford. He used to work for ESPN, and now he runs his own site called NBABigBoard.com. And he gave me a lot of good information that I'll try and run through quickly because there was so much juice there. And here's a little bit of what he said. He said that Cade Cunningham is the best player in the draft, and he expects the Pistons to take him at number 1, but it's not that simple because according to a poll of his sources around the league, there are 3 top tier or tier 1 players in the draft, and they're Cunningham, Green, and Mobley. And he said that Cade might not be the best fit for the Pistons because Green and Mobley are more athletic than Cade Cunningham. They have elite athleticism where Cunningham does not have that. And he wonders if there might be an issue if Cade joins some more players on that Pistons young core that aren't elite athletes. Additionally, he said that when it comes to Troy Weaver trading down, if it's going to happen, the Pistons won't do a deal until tomorrow or Thursday, and he'd likely need a Godfather offer, which would be 3 first-round picks for the number 1 pick. And he said that if that asset, meaning the number 1 pick in the draft, gets overvalued, then Troy Weaver might be quite interested in making a deal, or at least have to consider it. He said that he does not see the Pistons trading out of the top 3. And as of right now, his sources are saying the price tag is too high for a team to trade up to number 1. But he also predicted this. It's going to be a, quote, crazy night for the Pistons on Thursday. And, of course, we're very familiar with crazy draft nights under Troy Weaver because of what he did in 2020. He said that with the Pistons having the first pick and 3 second-round picks to work with, that could play a part of it. But he also said that because he came from Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma City covets acquiring assets, meaning first-round picks, that's why you could see a lot of action on Thursday night. And he mentioned that in back-to-back-to-back drafts, they hit on Durant, Westbrook, and James Harden. So when it comes to all that, He said that Pistons fans should not fall in love with anybody on their roster. Dennis, when you look at the Woj news and when you look at the news coming out of the interview with Chad Ford, what stands out to you about what the Pistons should do and will do on Thursday?
Yeah, well, a couple of those things were kind of at odds with Chad Ford was saying, like, Godfather, type situation, and that the Pistons are holding up for 3 first-round picks or 3 unprotected picks. It's like, if that's what the Pistons stance is, then they don't want to move off of Cade Cunningham, which is fine, and they're just throwing it out there like, if somebody wants to go crazy and give us the craziest package of all. If the Rockets want to give the Pistons 3 unprotected first-round draft picks, then that's one thing. And then, I think that, I get that. You don't have to have a source of the world to sit back and, be able to evaluate that. The one thing about Cunningham here is I think all Piston fans have fallen in love with him, and he wants to be here, and I think they're just locked in. But like when you mentioned across the league of that poll with GMs, I do think that they're I thought this was a 4-player draft that went down to Jalen Suggs, both of the Jalen's, Mobley, and Cunningham, however you want to order them. I don't think every GM in the league, has Cunningham number 1. What we don't know is what the Pistons had before they had the number 1 pick, how they evaluated him. How closely do they have, Mobley? How much do they really like Mobley compared to Cunningham? The same thing, with Green. Green, I heard had a great workout, and the Pistons loved everything about him. And so, maybe they do want to move back. We don't know that. I still think that's a 95% chance that the Pistons stay where they're at. I was listening to Bill Simmons, his podcast. Nobody likes the NBA more than Bill Simmons. He has that's all they do is talk about the NBA. And I don't remember who his guests were that were on there with him, all NBA dudes, and all of those dudes were like they wanted somebody else besides Cunningham. So, it could happen. The thing is, you just got to pick the right player. You got to pick the right player. A couple of years ago, Danny Ainge moved down, got Jason Tatum, and forget all the picks and everything else. He made the right move. And it might not be popular on Thursday if the Pistons move back. Let's say move back with the Rockets and get an unprotected pick there, and one of those Rockets first-round picks, in addition to get number 2, and they pick Evan Mobley. I think people will be upset, but then you just got to sit back and say, hey, we'll find out if they got the right guy. I think they should pick Cade Cunningham. I haven't said all that.
Yeah, I think they will end up picking Cade Cunningham. I don't think they're going to make a trade. I don't think that a team is going to make a Godfather offer, but it is interesting that as recently as over the weekend or late last week, there was a lot of chatter about the Rockets trying to acquire another lottery pick so that they could throw that at the Pistons so that maybe they could say, well, we got the number 2 and the 13 pick. Is that enough for us to get a deal done?
That's not enough.
Well, then Dennis says no. Of course, then you might have to dig into some other picks, like maybe the 24 pick or some future first-round picks.
Nobody wants any of those. They want the future unprotected picks. I mean, that's what it's going to take if you're going to trade them. Once you get out of not having an unprotected pick, where you're then like the number 2 is valuable, like flipping with the Rockets. And then being able to pick something else up, like an unprotected number 1 next year or 2 unprotected, you could get that. Who cares about 13 or 18 or 23 or some other pick at 13? Those are pretty much all garbage. I mean, the Pistons
16 and 19 didn't turn out to be garbage last year.
Well, you can play that with anything. I know. Antetokounmpo went 15. Kawhi Leonard went 15. I mean, we can play that game all day long. But we're just talking about where it's at right now.
Troy Weaver selected those 2 players.
Well, that's good. I mean, he was involved in the process. I mean, he was not the GM there. He was the assistant.
No, I'm talking about 16 and 19 last year were selected by the Pistons in Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well, so if you think he's just, if he's that much of a magician that he can move back and he can just continue to take players. And look, there's a difference. I like Bey and, he's nice, and I think Stewart's a nice player. But, when you're up top here, you're talking about taking superstars. I did think today was interesting because Weaver did speak to the press, and he said that the Pistons are still considering all options with the number 1 pick. He wouldn't guarantee lock in. Well, that's right. You don't want to do anything like somebody could. Like the one thing we don't know, like they could evaluate it. I go back to the not the 2018 draft that we talked about with Ainge doing, but if you go back to 2003 and you take Chad Ford and Darko and you put them on a boat and send them, to Siberia and, put those guys together, a marriage made in heaven. But then you just look, if the Pistons were they had a chance to take Carmelo and then 2 Hall of Famers, Wade and Bosch. And you look at all 3 of those guys. And if you're sitting there, you're like Carmelo, the scorer, Bosch, a 6'11" guy that's talented and, ended up as somebody that could shoot the 3 there. And then Dwayne Wade, when you're talking about 3 really comparable players, you couldn't miss. You couldn't miss there. If you got 3 can't miss guys here that you're looking at and you evaluate them and you're like, man, we just love Green, we love Mobley, and we love Cunningham. Hey, here's 2 unprotected ones just to move back 1 spot. And you have to consider that. It depends what you think about him. Talking about Cunningham, and then you do move back, man. Whatever you do, you got to be right on that.
Yeah, I think that's true. I'm of the belief that Cade Cunningham is the best player in this draft, but I don't think there's a huge gap between him and Mobley or him and Green. And so that's why I think that if you get a Godfather offer or close to a Godfather offer, that the Pistons should take it, that Troy Weaver should take it, because
what's a Godfather offer? I read some of your tweets and you're talking about
according to Chad Ford,
you like 18, you like 25, or
according to Chad Ford, a Godfather offer would be the 3 first-round picks. So if it's the Rockets, the number 2, the number 2 pick, the number 23 pick, and then a future first-round pick or something like that.
Yeah, well, they would hang up on Chad Ford and they would hang up on Troy Weaver if that's going to be the case.
I think that's why he's saying that as of right now, the price tag is too high. Teams don't want to pay that much, and especially, I guess, the Rockets to just move up 1 spot. But I think that this is all really fantastic news, because if you want Cade Cunningham, then you want the price tag to be high if the Pistons are not going to take him. And if you think that it's best for the Pistons to collect a lot of assets and they're going to get an exceptional player no matter where they pick in the top 3, whether it's Cunningham, Mobley, or Green, then you say, hey, Cade might be like 1% better, but he also might end up being 10% worse. Let me get one of these other guys by moving back and get some other assets. The Pistons have the worst record in the league. You mentioned, or in the conference, you mentioned Troy Weaver spoke to the Dishonest Media earlier today, and I think he was asked about, are they going to be picking for need or fit? And he said, everybody's a fit because we won 20 games last year. And from that standpoint, anybody that he can pick in this draft, whether it's at 1 or 2 or other first-round picks, are going to be a fit. If they draft Cade Cunningham, he needs some help. If they move back to number 2 or number 3 and get Green or Mobley, then they have an opportunity to get more help. So that's why I think that Pistons fans should want that. And I think it's good news that you have the Adrian Wojnarowski Woj bomb coming out, because that suggests that Troy Weaver might have seen what was going on over the weekend, where teams are announcing to the media, hey, we're pulling back because the price tag is too high. So he might have told Woj, hey, just so you know, we're not sure who we're going to pick yet. We don't know if we're going to take Cunningham. We might take Green or Mobley. So I think that might try to crack the door open a little bit more, just to keep teams from hanging up altogether. And I think that we are going to see some trade buzz come up in the next 48 hours. But I think this is great news that the Pistons are not going to sit there with 3 second-round picks, a guy that might be a G leaguer, and a guy that's going to be in street clothes, and a guy that's going to be the 9th guy on the depth chart. I think those picks, some of them or all of them, are going to be moved. Weaver is going to be willing and dealing, just like last year, and I hope that he moves down to number 2 to get some assets from the Rockets, because the Pistons need it. They were dead last in the East.
Yeah, let me just clarify. To move back, you think that the Pistons are going to get what from the Rockets? 3 unprotected number 1s? What do you think they're going to get?
That was what the Godfather offer would be, according to Chad Ford. They would have to get the number 2. No. They would get the number 2 pick.
All right.
They would get perhaps the number 23 or 24 pick in this draft, which the Rockets own, and then another future asset, another future first-round pick. I think that would be a great deal.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I think that's a good clarification there. I thought you were talking about 3 unprotected ones. Now, I think that's reasonable if you're the Rockets and the Pistons. Like if they're going to throw you another first rounder this year and then give you a future unprotected pick, I could see that
If I was the Rockets, I wouldn't do that because of my belief that there's such a small gap between all three players. The Rockets are the worst record in the league. So why are they going to give up a later first-round pick this year when they need all the help they can get and another first-round pick? They need lots of players, not just a guy who may or may not be the best player in the draft.
Well, it's like the Mavericks a couple of years ago. Trae Young's great, but the Mavs thought, hey, let's move up and get Doncic because this guy is the greatest thing of all time. Could be, and you know what? The Rockets look smart, and the Hawks look pretty smart too because Trae Young's pretty good. But it's something like that. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Tom Reddish.
And what happens is, and he looks pretty good. He looked pretty good in the playoffs. Looks like he's got a nice future there. If you can sit back and what happens if you get the best player, it's like this almost an Eddie deal. You get the best player and you get the superstar. It really doesn't matter how many other picks and everything that you got. You think the Mavs care that they, gave up a number one and they got Doncic. They're feeling pretty good about that. Let's get some of this feedback.
Well, let me just say real quick before we get to the feedback. You're right. You want to get the best player. And if everybody's saying that Cade Cunningham is the best player, that's great. But if everybody is also saying, well, these other two guys might end up being better, we feel like 1% or 5% more confident about Cade Cunningham. That's why I think it makes sense to say, well, let's take a guy who's a little bit less of a sure thing, who's also projected to be a multiple-time All-Star, and get some other chips as well.
Yeah, there's the argument. It's a good one. It's fun leading up to Thursday. Let's see what some of the feedback here. Here's Sideshow Raj first up. He's talking about trading that pick for Dame. Likelihood that happens, Chapman.
That's not going to happen because, first of all, I don't think that Damian Lillard, who wants to win, wants to go from a team that makes the playoffs every year and perhaps disappoints to the worst team in the Eastern Conference. If Damian Lillard's getting traded, he's going to have a say in where he goes. Number two, you'd have to include a lot of salary to go back to the Portland Trailblazers. It can't just be a pick for a player. He's making like $35 or $40 million per year. So where are the $40 million in players going to come? Is it going to be Jeremy Grant and Mason Plumlee and another player and a first round and Cade Cunningham for Lillard? No way that's happening.
Yeah, all of that is true. There's a 0% chance of happening. Like, the Pistons going to give Damian Lillard $40 million a year for the next 5 years. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So, no. I mean, if you're a team like the Knicks or the Lakers, you try to make some where you feel like you're a player away and you move everything and give up 7 number ones like the Nets did to get James Harden. Like, that's the way you make the move. Not for the Pistons. Like, they're looking for their first building block. Or not a building block. They're looking for their superstar.
Yeah,
all right, let's there you go. We're talking about that. Here's Keith. Good to see him in here. He's hoping for a trade. He's like Chapman. Tons of picks from OKC or from Houston. OKC's at 6, right? They were rumored to give up.
They've got 6. They got 16. They got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who's apparently on the trade block. And they have, I think, like 18 first-round picks over the next 5 or 6 years. The big drop, having all those future picks is nice, and being that Troy Weaver is from that OKC organization, it could be like Bob Quinn talking to the Patriots, and they just have all these chats about first-round picks. The big drawback is if you trade with the Thunder, there's no chance that you're getting Green, Mobley, or Cunningham.
Jelinek falling in love with Cade. He's no shot. I think there's a lot of fans that have fallen in love with Cade.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Like it's almost as if they're starting to hate Green or Mobley when you know that if the Pistons had an excellent draft night or lottery night that wasn't quite as good and they had the number 2 pick, Pistons fans wouldn't be ripping Mobley or Green. There'd be a spirited discussion about which one of those two to take. But now we got Cade. He's by far the best player in the draft. You don't get rid of a guy who's by far the best player in the draft when he might not be the best player.
Did you watch the video from, I said ESPN insider Schmitz? Is that his name on Cunningham?
I think it's Mike Schmitz. I did not see it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. He goes through the array of the big league moves that he has. He's got like 10 moves.
Oh, is that what you tweeted at me? I did. You texted to me?
I did. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I did see that.
That wasn't the complete package. I don't have an ESPN insider, but I heard people talking about it, and
he's got good moves because he's arguably the best player in the draft. Just like Green has good moves and Mobley has good moves.
Keith, it's unfortunate that OKC doesn't have a top 4 pick, or it'd be a no-brainer, he says, and goes on and says the fact that Cade is not elite athletically has always worried him compared to the top 3 players, other 3 players. I would easily take one of the other 3 top players and 2 to 3 first-round picks. There it is. That's the argument there. Mm-hmm. And as we go through it and take a look at it, Keith wants a comparing it to the Herschel Walker type deal with the Vikings back in the day.
Yeah. Hey,
can't settle for any of these late first round picks in a deal. Trading the number 1, that's not value. If you trade 2 of the top 5 picks for the number 1, that would be interesting. And Keith, we're rolling with Keith here. He wants Suggs in that top 3. He's not liking it that the Pistons didn't draft Kevin Porter Jr. with that last pick of the first round 2 years ago. And now he's on Houston after bouncing around a bit, and he's played well. Well, you can get Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah, he might have some off-the-court issues to deal with, but he's certainly talented.
Keith saying that Cade is good, but he thinks the other 3 top players are just as good or better, or could be, if you can pick up a tremendous deal of first-round picks, and you could still pick in the top 4. That's the way he wants to go. So there you go.
It's almost like for Pistons fans that say don't trade this pick under any circumstances. There's a guarantee that Cade is going to end up the better player. There's a guarantee that Cade's going to win the Rookie of the Year, assuming everybody's healthy. I wouldn't be surprised if Mobley wins the Rookie of the Year. I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Green wins the Rookie of the Year. But I think a lot of folks are around here acting like they would be stunned if Cade isn't the unanimous Rookie of the Year and in the greatest margin of all time.
Yeah, the thing to me is, watching all these guys play this year, and all 4 are awesome and look like they could be great. But the one thing about Cunningham, he looks like he's the best player right now out of all of those guys. And the hard thing to project, and especially when you own the number 1 pick, is like Evan Mobley. Even when you watched USC this year, his brother at times looked like he was the better Mobley. And he wasn't he's 7 feet, he could pass, he could shoot, but it's not like he was coming down. He can dribble, but there's a lot of ceiling there, and you're going a lot on potential. And Jalen Green, man, he can jump out of the gym. He's a super athlete. I mean, he wows you left and right here. But when it comes down, it was the G League, which it's still like how many people I watched 20 minutes of G League highlights, and you know what? He's super impressive. Watching him there. The thing about Cunningham, man, you just watch the flow of the game and how he. Sometimes he's the point guard. Sometimes he's off the ball. Sometimes he's letting the game come to him. Sometimes he's just out there making great passes. Sometimes he's taking over. He's got 7 feet wingspan. It's the guy that you have now. Plus, he was the number 1 player. He was the number 1 player coming in, number 1 recruit. That was almost a consensus of coming out of high school. He was number 1 and went up to and that part, I think, is something like all the way through. When you're 16, he was number 1. He was number 1 when he was 17. He was the number 1 recruit going into Oklahoma State, and he's still number 1. And when you stay there in your class, that's a tough thing. When you got other players and you look at them and say, yeah, but they've got the potential to be better. They do. And that's the tough part. And to your point here, do you take the potential along with draft compensation? To even those things out. That's the intriguing part. We'll find out Thursday night.
Yeah, and it also comes down to you're going to get a great player if you pick in the top 3. Do you want extra stuff with that great player, or do you want nothing with the great player?
Yeah, and I look back. This is not like, you got LeBron James staring yourself or Anthony Davis or some of the other guys where you just knew like, oh, man, like this is like this is one of the best
guaranteed
players.
Hall of Famer, guaranteed best player. Yeah.
Guaranteed. This is a little bit like 2018 where everybody was saying, Markelle Fultz and I thought Lonzo Ball was the player to take.
Or even last year, people were saying it could be Wiseman, it could be LaMelo Ball, it could be Anthony Edwards.
That's right. Although there's more of a consensus on
Cunningham.
On Cunningham. Yeah.
That's true.
But that's it. Like if you're sitting there, it's really easy. But you're Anthony Davis, let's go. But there's a little bit. It's because of the other two guys there, and you might even want to say four. I don't think the Pistons. I think it's safe to say that it's likely that they're going to pick Cunningham, but the small percentage if they move back, is it going to be the biggest shock of the world if they got number two?
It wouldn't shock me, but it would devastate a lot of Pistons fans who really have not watched the other two players and don't care about the other two players because all they know is Cade.
It would, and that would be, but like we said, it would be fair compensation if the Pistons got number 2, number 18 this year, and a future, whether it be next year or the following year, number 1 unprotected pick. That's great value. And then if they pick Mobley or if they pick Green, I'm not sure which one of those guys that they would pick there. Now, let's say it was Mobley, and they're like the Celtics 2 years ago. They were sure that Lonzo Ball was going number 2. If they're sure that Green, that's the way it looks. At least that's how it feels right now. Like if I had to say how the
Green refused to work out for any teams but the Pistons and Rockets because he doesn't think that he's going to be any worse than number 2 in the draft.
Right, and the Pistons love Mobley, and they can get even more going back to 3. That's a gamble. But if they're like Danny Ainge there, and they know they're going back to 3, and they know Green's going 2. If Mobley's their guy, and they take everything in the world from the Cavs, Piston fans are going to freak out. But that would be pretty shrewd if Mobley is their guy all along, even before going into the process, even before the lottery, June 22nd. If they're like, man, we just want one of the top 2 or 3 picks because we're going to take Evan Mobley, and then everybody's like, if they were sold on him, or if they're sold right now, do you think they're sold?
Yeah, well, I think that's why this news coming out from Woj is so great, because it shows that there is confusion, there is uncertainty, that it could be a crazy night, and I think that is only going to benefit Weaver and the Pistons.
Bob Wojnarowski or Adrian Wojnarowski?
Adrian Wojnarowski, the man with the Woj bombs.
I always like the story that Wojo tells. That he was going to a hotel somewhere like in Minnesota, and he came up to the counter, and the guy's like, "Are you the famous Woj?" And he's like, I guess. And I was like, the one that like drops the bombs, like the NBA bombs. It's awesome to me. He's like, "No, I'm not that Woj.
I'm just a Michigan fan."
Are
you ready to turn the page to the second chapter?
I am. That gets us to the college football. It's a lot of moving and shaking going on in college football. None bigger than finding out that the SEC is poised to add Texas and Oklahoma. So, Chapman, what is the answer? What does the Big Ten do to answer this move by the two power blue bloods going to the SEC?
I don't know what they will do, but I'll tell you what I hope they will do. And what I hope they will do is absolutely nothing, because I don't want there were rumors that came out saying that Kansas has a call set up and Iowa State might have a call set up with the Big Ten this week to discuss realignment. And people are also talking about, well, you could get the Texas market if you bring in Baylor. Or why not bring in West Virginia, because there's some geographical consistency there, just like there is with Iowa State. And I'm just thinking, and I'm hearing people talk about, well, you gotta answer. There's got to be 16 teams. So the SEC is going to 16 teams. Then the Big Ten has to go to 16 teams. And I just keep on thinking, no, they don't. They got 14 teams right now. Most people hate that Rutgers and Maryland are in the conference. I was actually speaking last night to one of my Uber riders who is a Maryland grad, and he still hates that Maryland is not in the ACC. He doesn't like the geographical inconsistency because his school and Rutgers are on the East Coast, and they have to play teams like Nebraska. Exactly. And so now you're going to potentially bring in some more Big 12 schools. You're going to add in Notre Dame, which does have geographical consistency, or some of these other teams throughout college football and the college landscape. The Big Ten doesn't need to add anything. They make a heck of a lot of money as it is. There's nothing special or golden about the number 16. 14 is enough. And if they add to 2 more to make it 16 teams, well, guess what? The teams that you traditionally like playing in the Big Ten, you're going to play them less, because guess what? You're going to have to be forced to play Kansas and Iowa State. Or you're going to be forced to play, if they add in USC and Oregon, you're going to have to play them more. So there's going to be less of Michigan playing, Indiana, or Michigan State playing Wisconsin. A lot of that stuff is going to go away. I don't think the Big Ten needed to do this. This is something that Texas and Oklahoma needed to do, because the Big 12 is failing. And, if you're the SEC, I guess it makes some sense, and there's some geographical consistency there, although I don't know how everybody in Texas feels about this. But the Big Ten does not need to add anything. I hated when they added Rutgers. I hated when they added Maryland. I still hate that move. People talking about, well, it brings in money. It doesn't bring in money for me, and I'm a fan. This is what we care about. I'm a fan, and I'm not getting a dime out of this. So I hope the Big Ten stands pat and says, oh, that's nice. That's cute what they're doing over there. We're not going to sit here at 14 and say we're undersized. We're good. I don't think the Pac-12 is undersized at 12, so why should the Big Ten feel undersized at 14? And on top of that, people all across the country make fun of the Big Ten when it comes to math. Oh, you had 12 teams, you're still calling yourself the Big Ten. 14, you're still calling yourself the Big Ten. They're going to be the Big Ten if they go to 16 teams. And the math would just get even worse. I hope they do nothing.
Yeah, well, I think I want them to be really choosy. I didn't like Rutgers in Maryland, and everybody's excited about, well, but what about the footprint? Like, I don't care about the footprint in New York.
Yes.
What about, but you do know that these are money-making machines, and so you understand why they were doing it. But no, I didn't like Rutgers in Maryland. I did like the additions of Nebraska and Penn State when they did it. Like, I like both of the football traditions, and even though Nebraska has dropped off, I liked it initially, and I always thought that they were going to get back. I like Penn State coming in, as an independent, and, even though they had a little bit of a sweetheart deal at the beginning. I think they should be really choosy, and being really choosy is Notre Dame. I know it sounds crazy. USC, Washington. Like if the Big Ten came out and said their response is you know what, hell, we're adding Notre Dame and we're poaching USC, to hell with our little sweetheart deal that we had with the Rose Bowl and, the Pac-10, Pac-12, Big Ten, this alliance that they have. They're like, no, we're bringing in USC, we're bringing in Notre Dame. That would be awesome. I like big time games and big time opponents, and Notre Dame and USC would do it. Now, if they went out there and were like, we love, and the Big Ten's all about, not all about, but part of it's like, the research and the academics. And, if they were like, part of it is, if they went out and said, we're adding 4 teams and 2 of them are going to be Cal and Stanford because they're so awesome. And then UCLA and, that would be great for the conference and everything. But I think just for, mostly we sit around thinking about football, but I get the market size, and getting one of the LA teams and getting out there isn't LA the second biggest market?
Yeah, behind New York City. From a monetary standpoint, probably the best thing they could do would be to add USC and UCLA, and then the other 2 California teams, Cal and Stanford, so that they could say, well, there is some geographic consistency, because there aren't any Big Ten teams in the Mountain Time Zone. There aren't any Big Ten teams in big chunks of the Pacific Time Zone, but the whole state of California is Big Ten country. It's just that they're not playing California Big Ten teams. They might have to go to the other ocean and play Rutgers in Maryland.
Well, none of it really makes any sense when you're talking about the geographical thing. I was listening to your boys on that college football pod. They don't call it that anymore. I forget what they call it.
The College Football Inquirer.
Yeah, that's it. I was listening to them talk about this, and Pete Thamel was like, the ACC, these are sources that he had. We're talking about, because the ACC's got this terrible TV deal and they're trying to get out of it. Like, they would have some kind of coastal league where they had an alliance with the Pac-12. So it'd be the ACC, and they're like, hey, and he was talking about, dominating from 12 o'clock. And then, of course, getting those late night Pac-12 games. Like, that sounded crazy to me. Thinking about, let's go East Coast, let's go Florida. I don't know how many teams that would be, because the ACC's got like 16 already. Pac-12. You're going to have 30.
The ACC's got 14, so you add 12 Pac-12 teams, and that's a 26-team league.
You like that?
No.
But what about
No.
unless the Big Ten grabs, 4 of the teams? We've always, over the years, it was always like, hey, there's just going to be 2 or 3 super conferences. It's always
And
it's
I've
always
never
been talked
understood
about.
why we need that. I think it makes sense to have, like, it might make money to have bigger conferences, and one big plus to having bigger conferences is perhaps, as opposed to starting off the season with 3 garbage teams like a MAC school, a Sun Belt school, and maybe you add in one other Power 5 team. You can have all Power 5 teams for all 12 games, or I guess it would be Power 4. But when you keep the conferences small, then the rivalries mean more because you're playing teams on a regular basis. Like, you think about it right now, 14 teams in the Big Ten, you play the other 6 teams in your division every single year. And then there's some other teams in the West, like Minnesota or Iowa or Illinois, that you're used to playing. You've been playing them for years and you continue to play them. If you expand to 16 or you expand to 18 teams, they're going to be seniors that graduate, and then 10 years down the road, a Michigan player is going to say, hey, what was it like playing, Northwestern? We never played Northwestern in my 4 years of Michigan football. But they're in your conference, and they've been in the conference for decades. We never played them because of conference expansion. It's just too big. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it might not make any sense to you, but when you're talking about expanding it and getting bigger games, and people like we're expanding the playoffs. If you're any good, you'd be able to meet them in a championship game, or be able to meet them into the playoffs. You don't necessarily have to play. It's not a God-given right or a Big Ten right that you join the conference that you're able to go to every team in there. I think that's not a big deal to me.
I mean,
I think they should be
normal.
really choosy, though. I don't think they should be out there like, if I heard Iowa State and West Virginia were coming in, I would feel like I don't like that. So it better be Notre Dame, USC, Washington, something like that. Or I think the Big Ten is. I would be more on your side there, but I think they should swing for the fences.
What kind of feedback are we getting?
Well, everybody is agreeing with me, and no, I don't know that yet. I haven't looked here. Keith is sick of these conferences trying to load up just for TV deals. Give me the good old days when the Big Ten had only 10 teams, and now they need to have 5 or 6 conferences and call it a day. Look, Keith, man, is agreeing with you on everything.
Smart man.
Mm-hmm. He's going back and forth with Jelinek.
Little Brian.
There you go.
Little Brian.
Yeah, little Brian. All right, there it is.
Are you ready to turn the page to the 3rd chapter? Just so you know, after the 3rd chapter, of course, we've got little Brian coming in for the 4th chapter, but a big announcement just before the 4th chapter begins. But as we turn the page to the 3rd chapter, that takes us to the NFC North, but not to the same old Lions. It takes us to the Packers, where Aaron Rodgers reported to training camp, and according to reports, is close to an agreement to return to the Packers for this year, and that will likely be his last dance in Green Bay. That's because, according to Adam Schefter of ESPN, the 2023 season is going to be knocked off of his current deal if these negotiations go as they are reported to be going. Additionally, if Aaron Rodgers demands a trade after the 2021 season and the Packers don't want to trade him, Rodgers could retire and keep his money, and the Packers would be hit with a $20 million cap hit. And if he changed his mind and decided to report on the eve of training camp, they would still have to have enough money under the cap to be able to let him play. So they would have to have that extra $25 million ready for Rodgers, assuming he wanted to come back for the 2022 season. And it basically puts the Packers in a position where they will have Rodgers for the remainder of this season, and then Rodgers can dictate his future after 2021. Dennis, do you think this is a good move for all sides, or does one side come out on top? And what do you think happens in 2022?
I think it's a good move for Rodgers, the Packers, but it's not a good, the loser of this is feels like the Lions, like if it was a retirement, that would have been the best outcome for the Lions, because you get him, out of Green Bay. And that's always the thing. If you're not looking at it from a Lions standpoint, it's just bad if you're a Lions fan on that, because, if they traded him, it was good news. And if they retired, it was good news. We thought those were going to be the only, the 2 things that were going to go on here. Him coming back for a final hurrah here in Green Bay is, that's how the Lions were going to compete, but it's still not great news. I mean, how many times do we hear over the last 3 months, but well, what if Rodgers gets traded, or what if he, we can put that to bed here. I think, it's clearly a win for the Packers. I mean, they're getting Aaron Rodgers back, and he's going to be 38 next year, and they're going to be able to get a hell of a lot for him. So, I mean, I don't know how I could, if they're great, they win the Super Bowl, there's also a chance that he could stay there. So it seems like a win all the way through for the Packers there. And for Aaron Rodgers, does he have to save a little face or put his tail between his legs because he was so adamant, I'm never going back there, to hell with him, but I got my deal and now I'm going back. I think that, it's pretty easy for him to say, like, I'm a superstar. His teammates are going to hold it against him at all. But if there is the slightest little bit of controversy or anything, it's all going to be like, well, what the hell, man? Everybody hates Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the guy threw all of his receivers under the bus, threw the whole franchise under the bus. But I don't think, they got a really good team. They're a Super Bowl contender. So I think it's a win-win, Packers and Rodgers. And, just a loss as a Lion fan, hoping that you were going to get him traded or get him, into retirement.
Yeah, I think that it's obviously not good news for Lions fans, but at the same time, I don't think that Aaron Rodgers was going to be dictating whether the Lions had a shot to win the division in 2021 or anything like that. The Lions are going to suck whether Rodgers was the quarterback of the Packers or not. The Lions are probably going to lose both games to the Packers, whether he's the quarterback or not. There'd be a better chance that the Lions could win a game with Jordan Love or somebody else at quarterback, but it ultimately is not going to matter for the Lions. From the Packers standpoint, I think it's great for all sides because Rodgers doesn't want to be in Green Bay, but he does have to spend one more year there. And while he's there, he gets one more chance to win a second title in Green Bay and further cement his legacy. And if he wins a championship this year, he goes out on a great foot. And Packers fans, I think they're going to love him forever, no matter what. But certainly leaving on a great note would help. He's going to get a lot of money no matter what he does. There's no long-term commitment. Green Bay isn't going to be able to force him to stay. If they do what he wants and they kick everybody out of the organization that he hates or whatever, then he could stay for another couple years and retire there. But if not, he can go. He can dictate where he wants to play next year. And from a Packers standpoint, it's great for them because without Rodgers, they had no shot to win the Super Bowl this year. Now they have a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. They were a 13-win team last year. They could easily go 13-4 or 14-3 this year with Aaron Rodgers, even though they have a difficult schedule. So on top of that, they buy themselves 6 or 7 more months to try to repair this relationship with Rodgers. And if they can, then they get to keep him long term. If not, then perhaps they can get a bunch of assets in return for him, like you were saying, and get a big haul. They also, I think it's important, have one more year to evaluate Jordan Love. This is going to be his 3rd year as the backup quarterback of the Green Bay Packers after they selected him in the 1st round. So they've got one more year to have him learn under Rodgers, one more year to see what he looks like in practice and in preseason games, which they did not have last year. And if he turns out to be a guy that they feel very comfortable using in the future, then they don't have to worry about their quarterback situation in 2022 and beyond. And if they see that they're still wondering about his future or he looks terrible, then they can easily go out and acquire another quarterback via draft or free agency.
All great points here. I think that let's bring in Jelinek, see what he thinks.
All right, we'll bring
in
little Brian for it. There you go. We'll bring him in for the 3rd chapter.
Should we? Were we slow playing him until the 4th? I'm sorry.
Hey, we can bring him in. You made an executive decision to bring him in early, and Jelinek has to be on his feet and ready.
Well, I'm always ready to go, boys. I'm always ready to go. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great move for Green Bay and for Rodgers. To be honest with you, Rodgers will probably be in Denver next or 2 years from now at this time. Great move for Green Bay and A-Raj.
There you go. Keith agrees with you. No, he doesn't. He was still talking about the Big Ten. There's somebody saying the H in Chapman stands for hate.
Somebody. Wonder who that Dennis Fithian on YouTube is that says the H stands for hates the Lions.
That's why I had to bring him in. I was typing a couple things up. I couldn't get him up. I couldn't talk and type at the same time. Keith back talking about Rodgers and the Pack have no effect on the Lions. they'll be lucky to win 4 or 5 games again this year. And he's predicting only 3. Wow.
Well, I think my prediction was 3-14.
Oh God, it sounds so weird. Still 3-14. It sounds so bizarre.
This was going to be a good feedback by me, but I don't think it came out right. I was going to try to say the only Lions that Chapman likes is Penn State, but it came out only Chapman is Penn State, so that's kind of botched by me on the feedback. And Keith hates the Lions too. He does say that. He makes it known.
He's put those comments in a couple of times. That's for certain.
All right, there's I think the best one out of there, at least for me, is that H in Chapman is for hate.
Yeah, hates the Lions.
He does.
Well, before we move on to the 4th chapter, what do you think is going to happen for both Rodgers and the Packers in 2024?
2023?
I'm sorry, 2022. But I said 2024. 2022.
They gotta be a Super Bowl favorite, right? They gotta be one of the 5 teams that could get there. No, easy money to win.
2022 is next year.
Are you talking about next year or the year after?
2022, next year.
This year's 2021. He's going to play for the Packers.
Right. Yeah, my bad.
That's all right. It gets confusing.
Are you coming to us from the future?
I am. Yeah.
I'll answer the question. I think that regardless if they win or whatever happens to him, I think that he'll want out, and maybe by then you can get something like if you got a superstar for a superstar. Maybe by then, like Russell Wilson, who played his college ball in Wisconsin, you could see him going to Seattle. He has a veto power under any trade. Maybe by then, Deshaun Watson's legal troubles are out of the way, and you could see Deshaun Watson going in. The Pack will have a pretty good idea, about Love, their QB that they have there that they drafted that started all this to get him ticked off to begin with. So if I had to put the front runners right now, I would put it in Houston and put it in Seattle. He's from California. Can we see any of those teams? Can we see
He's not going to San Francisco because they just drafted a quarterback.
He's not going to the Chargers. And, Matt, your boy Matt Stafford is in LA, so you don't see him going there either.
The Raiders are no longer in California.
Denver and the Raiders, both of those two, those would be on a list as well. The possibility of him heading to. So this is a short list for you.
All right,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Jelinek.
I was gonna say I think the Russell Wilson to Green Bay thing is insane. I've never even thought about that. That's a hot take. It's a sizzling take.
There were some rumors a couple of months ago that Russell Wilson wanted out.
Yeah,
and if those pop up next year when you got Aaron Rodgers potentially saying he wants out or I'm done in Green Bay. We won our championship or we lost in the first round and I told you this is the last dance and that's it. Then they're gonna. I would assume the Packers would want to acquire somebody who could be a star quarterback as soon as possible. You wouldn't have to worry about as much draft pick compensation. That's an easier deal to make.
All right.
And before we turn the page to the 4th chapter, I do have a big announcement to make. It's about the future of the show, and that is that little Brian will be taking a much bigger role in the 5th chapter beginning next week, as he will be co-hosting the show with Dennis. Thursday is going to be my last episode of the 5th chapter. So very excited for little Brian, an opportunity for him to step up. And we know the show is going to continue to go on strong with Dennis and little Brian. If you're saying I need a Brian on my show, you've got one, and just going to be little itty bitty Brian.
It's always going to be little Brian, isn't it? It's never going to change.
Well, I mean, hey, you guys are going to be able to take complete control of the show on Tuesdays. If you want to be considered Monster Brian or Incredible Hulk Brian or whatever, that's up to you. So you don't have to keep the little nickname.
Well, I would say in one way it's sad. I enjoy working with you twice a week. I enjoyed working with you in Detroit for I don't know how many years. I don't know when you started there. So it seems like at least
2014.
Yeah, so it's been a while, and we had a pretty good thing going here, but we always said that, hey, when we started it out, you say, hey, let's do this. You've seen other sports talk show hosts that aren't getting as much airtime do this until they get back on their feet, and you're on your feet. So congratulations is up for you for getting in there and moving ahead. So we feel good for you. And yeah, we're going to continue on here. I think we'll cut that intro a little bit, but other than that, a lot of the same.
There won't be anybody who reps submitting from Penn State anymore.
Well, I want to just cut it down. If I could get the last 5-10 seconds there, I think I can do it. That and keep that same beat there. We'll see if we can do that.
Keep the beat and then just go, because that's what you love doing.
Well, I'm going to do a cover of the song. I'm going to rap it now. It's going to be great.
Oh,
yeah,
whoa.
It's going to be awesome.
Okay.
I've already been practicing.
And you have a standing offer to come back anytime, even if it's just, for, a major wager, if you wanted to jump in or anything else, you always have that where you can get back in. So
I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And the future of the 5th chapter is definitely looking bright. All right. Now you're ready to turn the page to the 4th chapter.
I am ready to do that, and that takes us to the Hall of Fame inductions, which are a week from Sunday in Canton, Ohio. Great class. Charles Woodson and Calvin Johnson are going to be inducted on that Sunday. But when it comes down to the Megatron and the Lions, they have never been further apart here. We thought that maybe there was going to be a kissing and making up here, so you could have the Lions, looking good on the Hall of Fame Sunday, but that's not happening.
No, it's not. He told, I think it was a recent podcast, that if he sees Rod Wood at the Hall of Fame ceremony, he's going to, quote, keep it moving. He'll be basically cordial, but he's going to keep it moving. And when he was asked about whether he's going to mention the Lions in his speech, he said he's not. They're keeping it to 8 minutes maximum for all speakers. And so in the 8 minutes, he said he's got plenty of people to thank, but he's not going to be thanking the Lions. And afterwards, if they're hobnobbing and having cocktails and hors d'oeuvres, he's not going to spit in Rod Wood's face or tackle him or something like that. But he's just going to be cordial, keep it short, and keep it moving. And I don't see the Lions and Calvin Johnson ever burying this hatchet. I mean, they had their chance, they had their window, they had their opportunity. They have a new owner in Sheila Ford Hamp. They got the Hall of Fame ceremony, which you think puts some pressure on both sides, particularly the Lions, to iron out the situation, smooth out the situation so they wouldn't be embarrassed in front of the nation in Canton, Ohio. And there were also talks. There were also both sides saying, yeah, we've been having some talks and some discussions that happened months ago. But having talks and discussions and I mean, what's the point of having talks and negotiations when it's pretty simple? Either Calvin Johnson gets the $1.6 million back from the same old Lions, or there is no repaired relationship. Like calling up and saying, hey, this is Sheila Ford Hamper. Hey, this is Rod Wood. How's the kids? How's your marijuana industry? Oh, that's great. Just want you to let you know that we got a suite for you at Ford Field. Yeah, I'm going to just sit back and roll up some dope and watch the game by myself. Might not even watch the Lions game. That's how it's going to go. They had their opportunity. They did not decide to go through with mending fences by now. So unless there's some sort of last second Hail Mary into triple coverage, which Calvin Johnson can do pretty well to mend fences, they are just never going to bury the hatchet.
Yeah, I just don't really care about this story anymore. I hate that it's still news. I hate that people are still talking about it. I mean, of course he's going to bring up teammates and stuff like that, but he has no right to bring up the Lions, and the Lions just shouldn't really care either. It's also 1 million, 1.6 million, something like that.
Yeah.
Who cares? The team's incredibly wealthy. Calvin Johnson's made more money than God. Who honestly cares at the end of the day? I don't care if Calvin mends the fences or not. I don't care if he's an ambassador. I'm over the story. Congratulations for getting in the Hall of Fame, but that's really about it.
Whoa.
I just don't care.
Yeah. I think this there's Lion fans who loved Calvin Johnson when he played here and hoped that that they could come together and go off into the retirement, and that he could come back and be an ambassador for Detroit. And Barry Sanders, when he left, he left under the Lions, burned him out. And at first, I mean, he hated the Lions, and there was, things about his signing bonus, but the Lions, ultimately, gave him some money, and, he came back, and now everything's good with Barry Sanders. But I think the fans, I think Lion haters and even Lion fans, I think they are more with the Lions than they are with Megatron. I mean, you can understand, not liking the organization, but when you make $120 million and you're the one that retires, does he have a point when he looks around at how Dallas, and how Seattle handled
Indianapolis
handled Andrew Luck? They gave him all of his money. The Cowboys gave Tony Romo all of his money. Marshawn Lynch got all of his money. Nobody was going back, but the Lions getting in Calvin's pockets, and
this could hurt them long term, because NFL players around the league are talking about this, and it's not like there are a whole bunch of teams. Like half the teams are like the Lions, and half the teams are like the Cowboys and the Colts. It's like the Lions are the only team doing this, and these other teams were giving out like $30 million to these players. Calvin Johnson, it's only $1.6 million, and the Lions are like, no, we're going to be real cheap with that $1.6 million. So I think that other players, future free agents, are going to say, this team is going to be pinching pennies when it's time for me to retire, and I'm looking for like one last deal, one last mega deal. I don't want to deal with that. And there could be like free players of the Lions draft who are going to be hitting their first big contracts or second big contracts, thinking, I might want to retire after this deal or at the end of this deal. I don't want to get into a bitter dispute with the same old Lions, so I'll go somewhere else. Like when you see other teams giving out $30 and $40 million, and the Lions are cutting back and saying, we're not going to give you 1.6, don't think that other teams, other players around the league aren't talking about this.
Well, they could be. The cheapest team in the league is the Jags. I mean, they went through a bunch of penny pinching moves and trying to get money back from players. So,
and look how that's worked out for them.
Well, I mean, they're at the bottom right now, the Jags, and where the Lions are at.
That's
it
right.
could. Oh, what's 1.6 to the Fords? I don't know. Is that like $1.60 to us? I don't know. Like, I would give $1.60. Would I get $10.60 to keep Megatron around? I would. But I give him $1,000? No.
Calvin Johnson's made over $113 million in the NFL. It's just, I'm sick of it from both sides. I don't think anybody's right or anybody's wrong. I think there's more blame on the Lions, but at the end of the day, it's $1.6 million. Like you said, it's $1.60 for Calvin. It's like 60 cents for the Lions. Who cares at the end of the day? Who really cares? Aren't you guys not sick of the story, though? Like, it's just annoying.
I'm not, because it's funny and it makes the Lions look bad. So, no, I'm not.
Well, anything makes the Lions look bad.
Well, especially this, when it looks like they're being really bleeping cheap.
Yeah. Is that why you have the Barry poster up, or Barry's jersey right now?
I knew we were going to talk about the same old Lions, and honestly, most of the time, I don't even think about what we're talking about. I just pick out one of my jerseys and hang it up.
Well, anything makes the Lions look bad, so I really don't care at this point. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All right,
what kind of feedback are we getting?
All right, let's check the feedback. Here's somebody asking, who hates the Lions more, Megatron or Chapman? Good question. Keith is going to miss Chap for sure. He hopes to keep hearing him on the radio.
Thank you, Keith.
We are going to keep it moving. The 5th chapter without Chapman. That's just like Megatron's going to keep it moving when he sees Rodgers. I wouldn't mention the Lions either if I were Calvin, as they were a big part of why he retired. One of the all-time great wide receivers, just white receivers, retired at the age 30 because the Lions sucked. That's the bottom.
Yeah, I don't think Calvin Johnson is white.
Same thing with Barry. 2 of the greatest Lions ever retired at the age 30. It's just a shame. Yeah, I mean, there's a part of it. If you do want to go, like, look, the Lions, you can sit around criticizing them all day. That is a big part of it. 2 of their greatest players in my lifetime, both of them left, like playing for the Lions in 1 year is like, dog years, for most, people, you see them leave, and that's what it does to you. But, Yeah, I mean, that's the part. You're hoping at some point, like, Jelinek sick of this story. There are a lot of Lion fans like, man, this is a piling
There's
on.
one way to easily end this story, and that is for the Lions to pay the money. Like Calvin Johnson doesn't go around bringing up whenever he gets interviewed, hey, make sure you ask me about whether I like the Lions. I would assume that's not happening. They just ask him, so what's your relationship like with the Lions? And then he tells them, I got nothing to say. And then that makes headlines. But the way to make this go away is either for the media to stop asking questions, which they're not going to do and they shouldn't do, or for the Lions to give him his money and all of a sudden he's happy to be back in the fold.
Is Megatron going to be like 70 years old? I don't care about the line. That 1.6 is, I was going to keep it moving. That's like,
you know how much weed you could buy with $1.6 million?
It's just like, to Calvin's defense too, I wouldn't want to talk to Rod Wood either. So like that's kind of a win-win for Calvin today.
I know Dennis wouldn't. He hates Rod Wood more than any person on the face of the earth.
Well, I don't really hate Rod Wood. I just him being elevated to president, and it's not exactly nepotism. It's cronyism, and it's what the Fords. It's one of the things that they have stood for with the Lions and the way that they have elevated, whether it was Russ Thomas and Matt Millen and all the things that kept going on there. It was just a symbol of what made this a sad sack franchise for so long. And, the one thing in Martha, there was a lot of things that she did that, continue. Well, she was the one that, put Rod Wood and then put him out there as the face of the franchise even before they hired anybody. So it's just the cronyism and that he is the symbol for it. I have a hard time getting over that. Now, Sheila Hamp, I don't have any issues with anything that she has done. Now, would it have been nice if she had just moved to, Rod Wood to some other position there? She's kept him. Like, I'm not going to sit here every year and complaining about, Rod Wood and his status with the team. But, he is part of that symbol, just like, Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders, that sticks out. And it's something that I don't know whether people dwell on it or not, but it comes up every once in a while. This time because Megatron, that's a great ceremony. I love watching the Hall of Fame ceremony. That should be a great celebration. Are they going to be Lion fans? Are they going to show Lion fans out in Canton? How do you think they're going to handle it? Well, there's issues with Kelvin. They're going to say it. Whoever.
I think most Lions fans, when they're watching it, are probably not going to notice that he doesn't mention the Lions. There will be some that know about it. But I don't think Lions fans at the end are going to be like, something was missing. I wonder what he forgot to say. Something just feels weird.
No, what's going to happen is that you have the broadcast team there. They go up and they throw it to the speech. But at some point, when they're going around in between breaks or something, they look around and say, hey, there's some Michigan fans coming up. Yeah, there's some Cowboy fans there's all those Peyton Manning fans. There'll be some Colts, some Bronco fans there that love Manning, and they'll say, hey, there's some Lion fans. And what's going to say? A little bit of, they couldn't mend the fences, and they're going to have to talk about that story. Mm-hmm. That's there.
That's true.
That's there. So there's going to be some negative press about the Lions. And, you're a Lion fan like, oh, there's not this again. Well, I mean, this is part of it. You're going to have to deal with it on Sunday, or don't watch it. Don't watch it. Like, I don't know how many times they're going to bring it up, but they're going to bring it up.
Yeah. Probably not a lot because NFL Network wants to make the NFL look good, and ESPN is not about dogging a particular team. So they're not going to harp on it the way that people in Detroit would.
Well, do you think 2-4-7? Do you think Dan Miller, the voice of the Lions, when he's showing the induction speech of Calvin Johnson, is it just going to be all straightforward? Hey, Calvin Johnson, he was one of the greatest. Or does he mention, which is part of the story? I think that he'll have to mention hey, he didn't say anything about the Lions. They couldn't come by.
He's a good journalist and he's fair, but I think that because he is paid by the Lions as the play-by-play broadcaster,
he didn't say anything.
I don't think he'll mention that. I don't think that he's gonna. He's not gonna lie and say Calvin Johnson loved the Lions and he said all these things. We just don't have a clip of it somehow. He's not gonna do that. But I think that he's gonna say, here's an excerpt of what Calvin Johnson did, and they'll probably. The best way for him to do it would be to say, and he made sure to thank his longtime friend and quarterback, Matthew Stafford.
You know what? Maybe Calvin, without saying anything about the Fords or actually the Lions, he could say something about the fans in Detroit.
Exactly. He could say, I love the fans. I love Matthew Stafford. And then that's it.
I do think there's a lot of creative.
He's not going to dog the Lions in the speech.
Right.
He's just not going to mention them.
And there's a lot of creative ways. I mean, if you're somebody, I'm just focusing on Dan Miller because you're right. He is paid. He is the voice of the Lions. But he could say, "Hey, you know what, Calvin Johnson? He didn't even have to say anything. He made sure that he went and said something about the fans of Detroit. And you can just say it like that.
Exactly. That's what he'll do.
I agree.
All right, you guys ready to get to the major wager?
I am. I just want to say before we go anywhere, Chapman, if there've been a few times this year. There was this Laker game. You looked at the roster and you were like, "Hey, man, this is the bet tonight. They're taking on the Pelicans, and this is the bet. This is a depleted squad." I don't remember which side you were on, but I remember tuning in. Pelicans were like up by 20, but in the second quarter they went on and won by 40. I mean, that was a great bet. So occasionally, I mean, I don't know about that formula you were using for baseball or whatever else.
It worked for a while, but I haven't used it in a while.
It just reminds me because last week you were like, "I'm going to take the opponents against USA basketball," and I don't know, was it Sunday morning? I watched the fourth quarter of USA France, and man, you should have taken the money line on that one.
Yeah, I took a little bit of the money line, but more on France plus the 12 points. So I cashed in. What did you bet on last Thursday? Remind everyone, and what are you thinking about for today?
I took, so far I've been looking at a lot of the futures in the NFL. I focused in on the Steelers. Coming up, we're going to have to bring Raj in to get some over and unders in through the NFL leading up to the season. But I took a long shot on Ben Roethlisberger. I think I got him at plus 8,000 as an MVP winner, and I also have over 9.5 or 9. I'd have to look. Whatever the Steelers is, I like that over. So right now, black and yellow or black and gold, whatever they go by. I think the Steelers are going to have a good year.
And so that's your pick for today. The Steelers over 9.5.
No, that's what I picked.
Okay.
That's what I picked last week. You know what? I like the Tigers. I was going to pick the Tigers on Sunday.
Here come the Tigers. Put your Craig Monroe icon on your phone since you're going to be pro Tigers tonight with their 4-game losing streak.
Well, I was going to say I was going to pick them on Sunday. I liked everything that was going on there. And, hey, he's a professional. That's the way he's going to do it. He's going to hit it. Simo liked everything about the approach and being able to barrel everything up what was going on, but then it didn't work. I don't know. I gotta get a bet. Yeah, go. You guys go ahead with your bets. I'm going to come up with one on the fly here and take a look at it. I don't know.
All right, little Brian, Dennis is not prepared. Tell everybody in Metro Detroit how they can make some money.
All right, so there's going to be an American winning gold medal in golf this year, and it's going to be Xander Schauffele. He is plus 900 to win gold, and I'm feeling really good about that one. So all in on Xander. I think Olympic golf is tomorrow, I think, at 6 p.m. So all in on that.
Okay. All right, you ready?
On Thursday, I took Giants money. Oh, you can't cut me off like that.
No, you're on.
Okay, good. Well, I took Giants money line and the over 8 runs, and they beat the Dodgers. So I'm happy about that, 5-3.
There you go. So you cashed in. All right, Dennis, you ready, or do you want me to go?
No, I do remember now because I was looking through the some of the team futures here, just the website that I was looking at. This was winning the conference. So, the Buccaneers are plus 250. This is the teams that are going to go to the Super Bowl, and I'm not going to bet the Buccaneers to go to the Super Bowl, but the Seahawks are plus 1,000 to get to the Super Bowl. I like that, so I am going to go with the Seattle Seahawks to represent the NFC. And out of the AFC, you got the favorites as the Chiefs and the Bills and the Ravens and the Browns are the next best. I like the Titans.
Browns. Okay.
I do like the Browns, but I like the Titans at plus 1,400. I'm going to go with the Titans plus 1,400, and I am going to look on the other side, and I am going to play the Seahawks at plus 1,000.
All right. As you mentioned, Dennis, last week I took France plus the 12 points against Team USA basketball, and promises made, promises kept. I'm going to continue to bet on taking the points whenever Team USA is playing. And tonight at 12:40 a.m., Team USA plays Iran. So that's in a little less than 4 hours. And 3 days ago, 2-3 days ago, I jumped on this point spread when I saw it was 37.5 because I just knew that number was going to go down. And I was wrong because earlier today, I saw the point spread had jumped up to 41 points. Last time I checked a couple of hours ago, it had settled in at 39.5 points. I mean, think about it. Is Team USA a team that has not covered in 4 of its last 5 games, meaning the 4 exhibition games and their first Olympic game? Are they going to go out there and beat any team by 40? Could they beat me, the 2 of you, and a couple of guys at the YMCA by 40? The way they're playing right now, no. So look, I know Team Iran does not have any NBA players, while Team France had 3, including Rudy Gobert and Evan Fournier, but I am taking Iran and the points. There's no way that America is going to win by 40 points. They don't care. They're struggling right now. That no way. Take those points.
Yeah, America will never lose to something like that. Just money from deep. Just absolute money from deep. Yeah, we can easily take down the American squad. Yeah, they may not even. Do you think they'll medal or not?
Well, that takes us to the 5th chapter. And in the 5th chapter, we are getting to USA basketball, which obviously you guys know I'm not high on them right now because I think that they're not going to cover for the 5th time in their last 6 games. But they haven't won a game in the Olympics. They're winless in the Olympics. They're dead last in the Olympics. So, little Brian, as opposed to you asking the question, I'm going to ask it to you. Not do you think they're going to medal, but do you think they're going to win the gold medal?
I gotta say they're gonna at least medal. I don't know about gold. I don't think they will. It's shocking to say because they haven't lost a game in the Olympics since 2004 until this year. I don't see them winning gold at all. I think they'll squeak out a silver or bronze, but no, they will not win gold, which would just be unbelievable. So yeah, it's pathetic.
Chapman, do you know exactly how it works? It's not a double elimination in the pool? I mean, how many more games?
Oh, no, I believe that they have 2 or 3 more games in pool play, and then after that they go to the elimination round. And I mean, they're going to be favored. They're going to be favored in every single game. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think they're going to beat Iran tonight, being that they're 39.5 point favorites. I just don't know about. Matter of fact, I'm almost certain they're not going to win by 40.
Yeah, unless Iran has a weapon of mass destruction that we don't know about or something there. I still think that USA is going to win the gold here. Some tight games. I'm not the biggest Pop fan here. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing over there on the sideline. I think they need to evaluate. I don't know, did Grant Hill put this team together or whatever else? You just putting a collection of guys together. I watched the game against France, and I realized that the Bucks just flew over, but and
Booker.
Chris Middleton didn't play at all, or he had a goose egg, and meanwhile, Holiday pretty much saved him there at the end. So I don't know about the rhyme or reason. I know that there was some foul trouble for KD. It's a different game. It's not what you see out there in the NBA is different than the international play, how they call it, and everything else. And I don't know. A lot of these guys, most of them are just used to let's bring the ball. Get out of the way. Let me go one-on-one. Dame Lillard's going to shoot a 35-footer. That's not the game. Where's Pop? Is he going to be able to adjust that? But I would pick them. I know everybody's down on them, and it's I understand why, but I would still pick them to win gold.
I think the one thing they're certainly not going to do is win silver. If they get to the gold medal game, they're going to win it. If they get eliminated before then, and then they have to play in the bronze game, then I would assume that they'll show some heart and some dignity and come out and win that. But I'm going to go against them winning the gold as well. I mean, think about it. In the 5 games that they played, meaning the 4 exhibition games and the 1 Olympic game, not only are they 1-4 against the spread, straight up they're 2-3. They lost to France straight up. They lost to Nigeria straight up, and they lost to Australia straight up. These teams aren't loaded with NBA players. France has 3, including the defensive player in the year, but Evan Fournier is their second best player. Who's the second best player on America? It's either whoever you think is the worst out of Lillard and Durant. Australia, that's not Australia with LaMelo Ball because he played there for 1 year. Like Australia, I don't know, is Bogut playing for them, but they couldn't beat them in an exhibition game.
Who's the best player on USA? I thought that was Durant.
I mean, some would say it's Durant, some would say it's Damian Lillard. Whoever they have, that there is, a heck of a lot better than these other teams have, except for maybe, Slovenia with Luka Doncic. But Luka Doncic playing with like some guys from around the corner where he grew up. That's not a great team. But could you see them beating the United States, given that Pop hasn't done a good job with them, given that every other team seems to have chemistry? No other team had guys flying in the day beforehand. And you think about motivation. Everybody in the world wants to say, whether they win the gold medal or not, we beat Team USA. We beat the Americans. Like 40 years from now, you're going to have French people, and not just like Gobert, but like Nando De Colo and some of these other guys saying, oh, bonjour, as I eat my croissant. Did you know that back in 2021, in the 2020 games, I beat Kevin Durant and the Americans? That's like something that's a huge badge of honor, whereas the Americans aren't going to go 20, 40 years from now and saying, hey, back in the day, we crushed Iran. Nobody cares about that. And then you look at these guys, there's 3 players who just played in the finals last week. Like Chris Middleton just accomplished his dream. Drew Holiday just accomplished his dream. And now they're going to go play more basketball. Devin Booker's devastated because his team blew a 2-0 lead, and now he's got to play more basketball. The motivation isn't there. Team USA is not going to win the gold.
Yeah, those guys from the finals shouldn't be on the team. That's
but they were struggling for anybody to come out. Like they had to bring in JaVale McGee. And I think that this could be a year where, like we saw back in 2004 or whatever, once when they didn't win the gold medal, that there was a resurgence. Some of the best players in the game. Like 2024, you might see a stacked roster again when they don't win gold and may not even get a medal.
I'd rather have seen it wouldn't have worked this year because of the draft, but I'd rather seen like Cade Cunningham and Mobley and all of that out there. Suggs, so it'll get some of those younger players put a real mix. All right, that's going to do it. We'll have Chapman's final show coming up on Thursday. Plus, it'll be the Motorcade NBA Draft Special for Brian Jelinek. Thanks. We'll drop that interim tag coming up on Thursday. I guess on Tuesday, a week from now. And for Brian Chapman, I'm Dennis Fithian. Good night.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth chapter.